Well, are you ready? All right. So if you look on your app or you look in your program, it's going to tell you a little bit about our next speakers, our keynote speakers. And while I'm introducing them, I'm going to see if they're about ready to come on up. Okay. Shane and Hannah Burcaw are relationship vloggers on a mission to change the way society understands disability. On their YouTube channel, now we all know what YouTube is, right? Squirmy and Grubs, which has gained 800,000 plus subscribers. Let me repeat that, 800,000 subscribers. That's a lot of people, folks. And worldwide media attention, the couple shares a hilarious and authentic examination of what it's like to be in an interabled relationship. Shane lives with a form of muscular dystrophy that requires him to use an electric wheelchair. Hannah is able-bodied and provides the majority of Shane's daily care. In addition to their work on YouTube, the couple has co-authored a collection of non-fiction love stories that involve people with disabilities. Now, each of you who came in here is an opportunity. You got books that he's written, but this series, I can't wait till it comes out. Shane and Hannah speak across the country, from universities to elementary schools to Fortune 500 companies. Now, they live in Minneapolis, Minnesota, with their fluffy golden doodle, Katie Smith, golden doodle. She also has one, Chloe. Let's give them a Family Cafe warm applause for Shane and Hannah Burcaw.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Can everyone hear us okay?
Yes.
Thank you. What's up? How's everyone doing today? Good. Welcome to the Family Cafe. We are so excited to be here. It's wonderful to see so many of you in person, and we know that many of you are watching at home as well. So welcome, everyone. This is actually our first in-person speaking engagement in over
a year.
Yeah. So we're very happy to be back on the road doing this with all of you. But we have to tell you a little story. Yesterday, as we were preparing to fly down here from our home in Minnesota, we got out all of our suitcases that haven't been used in a year and a half. And we're going through them, filling them up with things. And at one point, Hannah says to me, "Oh, what is this lump?" And I was like, "What? Like, they should be empty." And she pulls out this dark black mass. And I was like, "What on earth is that?" And she brings it closer. It was a rotten banana.
Yes. It was like leather, like it was like calcified. It was rock hard, and apparently we left the banana in there. And, I guess thought we were going to travel again soon, and then we didn't for a year. So.
I think that maybe we should have left it in there as like a good luck charm when we're traveling.
I don't think so.
I don't know how the TSA would appreciate that. But so today, we are going to share our relationship with you, talk about what it's like to be in an interabled relationship like ours. And a big part of our life is being YouTubers. We made videos about exactly that on our channel, Squirmy and Grubs, which we'll talk about more in a bit. But to begin, we want to read you a comment that is exemplary of many of the comments that we get. And it shows how much ignorance about disability there still is in our world.
Yeah. Okay, so the comment is, Personally, I think the life that you have is not worth living, but for some odd reason, you don't realize it. And that was directed at Shane, obviously.
The life that you have is not worth living. That is a punch in the gut. I know that my life is worth living. And when I look out here at all of you, I know that each and every one of you has a life worth living. That right? That's it. That comment right there is an example of ableism. Ableism is the discrimination or prejudice against people with disabilities. And Hannah and I cannot tell our love story without addressing ableism. So today, we're going to do that. We're going to tell you our love story. We're going to have fun, and we're going to laugh. But we're also going to talk about ableism, because it is going to take all of us, disabled and non-disabled, to fix the way that society thinks about disability, to erase that ableism that is out there in the world. And so we'll talk about how we can all be better allies to the disability community.
Yeah. All right, so to begin, I think we should go way back, right, Shane, to your childhood.
Oh, the
Talk
dreaded
about
days.
The dreaded days of you as a baby. Do you want to talk about your first wheelchair? I think that sort of shows who you are.
Yeah, so I have a disability called spinal muscular atrophy, which basically causes all of my muscles to be very weak. And so my parents said that I was the laziest baby ever. I had no interest in moving around. And so I got my first wheelchair when I was about 2 years old.
Shane's parents told me that his favorite activity when he was 2 years old, and this is an electric wheelchair at age 2, like a big one, like a real one. His favorite activity was to go full speed into walls, full speed into people, into little Lego towers that his brother was building. Anything that he could destroy, he would just go right into.
I must have been a handful for my parents. A little bit later on, as I got older and more mature,
Wow, no.
at the age of, 9, 10, I have a story for you that kind of exemplifies what my childhood was like.
Mature, that's a really interesting word to use for this story. So when Shane was, how old were you, think, like 9, 10?
Maybe, yeah.
So Shane's younger brother, Andrew, is 3 years younger. So if you were 9, Andrew was 6, which makes this story way worse.
Horrifying.
So Shane's the older brother in this story, and he tells his younger brother, well, I guess his younger brother really wanted to dunk the basketball.
Yeah.
He was 6, he couldn't dunk it, but he really wished he could. So Shane tells Andrew, his younger brother, that he is going to help him dunk the basketball, and Andrew's excited. Shane tells him to go get a rope from their garage. They have a basketball hoop outside. Go get a rope from inside. I don't know how Andrew found a rope, but apparently he did.
Andrew comes out with this long, it was like naval rope, like heavy-duty rope here.
Heavy-duty rope.
And I say, all right, Andrew, do you trust me as your older brother, the wise one? And he's like, no, not at all. I said, Andrew, tie one end of that rope around your waist. And he began to do it, and he was like, what are we doing here? And I said, now, take the other end of the rope, put it up through the basketball hoop, and bring it down and tie it to my wheelchair.
Oh boy. Really mature. Okay.
So Andrew begins to tie up the rope in my chair, and I begin to reverse. And Andrew screams out in pain. He didn't have a shirt on. It was the summertime, and obviously, the rope didn't feel very good on his chest. So I stopped, and I said, Andrew.
But you didn't stop.
Well,
You know, at this point, you might want to abandon the plan. It didn't work. But you don't abandon the plan.
I say, Andrew, go inside and find some pillows.
Okay.
And Andrew was like, why? And I was like, don't worry, find some pillows. So he goes in and grabs the couch pillows from our brand new couch. That's just a side note. And we bring them out, and I say, now, put them in between your body and the rope and tie yourself up again.
He does. Poor Andrew listens to his big brother's advice, and he does it. And Shane begins to lift him back up. This time it doesn't hurt. Andrew's excited. You know, he's getting closer and closer to the hoop. And then all of a sudden, it sort of stops working, right? You hit a point where Andrew is no longer rising. Shane's, you know, reversing his chair as fast as it'll go, and nothing's happening.
Andrew's dangling in the air. I don't know why it got harder. I think it has to do with science. At that point, Andrew has the nerve to yell out to me, "Try harder." I was like, all right, I'll put my back into it. I don't know what you want me to do here. I'm in full reverse, my wheels are spinning. At this point, I notice a cloud, a plume, if you will, of smoke coming out of the back of my chair. And nothing about that told my brain to stop what we were doing. I kept reversing, and then out of the corner of my eye, I see our dad running towards us.
Your poor dad. So Shane's dad comes out, you know, probably gets Andrew down from the hoop, stops all this from happening. Tells Shane never to do that again, you know, don't do that, that was unsafe. Tells Shane to go inside, and as Shane tries to drive inside, his wheelchair will only turn left.
That's bad, as I'm sure many of you know.
Yeah.
And upon further inspection, my dad discovered that our little stunt had completely shredded the motors in the back of my chair at the replacement cost of $8,000. So we were in trouble.
Yeah.
And I know that this story is silly and ridiculous, but I think it does give a good example of the attitude that I and my family had about my disability, even from very early on. We were not going to allow it to slow us down. We were going to have fun. We were going to be creative and figure out ways to get me involved in whatever we were doing, often to the detriment of my brother. But now I think we should fast forward to the good part of the story, and that is where Hannah comes into the picture.
Aww.
I had gone on to high school and college and became a writer and blah, 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 no one cares. And then I met Hannah.
So I met Shane 5 years ago, right? Yeah, I guess a little over 5 years ago.
Time flies.
I know. I was a freshman in college living in Minnesota, and Shane had just graduated from college, and he was in Pennsylvania. And I was up late one night studying. It was during finals of my winter term, freshman year. And I was done studying, actually. I was on YouTube. I was taking a study break. And I watched a video that one of my favorite actors from the show The Office made about Shane. It was a mini documentary. I liked his channel, and I watched the video. And it linked to the blog that Shane had written and the nonprofit that he ran. It was just about his career, basically, like in his, you know, personal life. So I watched that. I thought he seemed really cool. I read the blog for a while. And then, really out of character for me, I sent him an email being like, "Hi, I saw this, you know, you seem great." I think it was because it was like after midnight, I was exhausted, delusional or delirious maybe. No?
I like to tell myself that she was overwhelmed by my charm,
Yeah.
my good looks,
Okay. It was probably that, yeah.
my humor.
Yes. So anyway, Shane responded the next morning, and we began texting, and we FaceTimed like the next day, and very quickly we were in love, basically.
We realized we had a ton in common, and
Yeah.
like it was surreal how like fast we connected.
Yeah.
We got along so well, which was really inconvenient.
Yeah.
Because we were living 1,000 miles apart.
Yep.
So we FaceTimed. We began to FaceTime every day. We began like rearranging our lives to make time for FaceTime.
Yeah.
And at some point, a few months in, we were like, all right, well, we need to meet in person because this is amazing
Yeah.
and terrible not being able to hang out together.
Yeah.
So Hannah flew from Minneapolis to Pennsylvania. where I lived.
I like to note here that Shane, so I was really nervous to go on this first trip, right? Like I had never met Shane in person. I don't particularly enjoy like meeting new people. Like I've never flown by myself before this trip. And I was terrified, like what if we didn't get along and all of a sudden I'm like at his house, like what do I do? So I'm terrified. I get to the airport and Shane is 45 minutes late picking me up. And it's not his fault. He's notoriously early. It was Philadelphia traffic. But I was like, oh my God, this is it. Like, it's worse than I imagined. He's not coming. But it was a terrible start,
And I think people often want to know, like, did you have any experience with disability?
Yeah.
And did my disability scare Hannah?
Yeah. And I wish I had a better answer for this. Like, it was a while ago, and I don't really remember that well, but I had no experience with disability, so everything Shane told me was sort of just me learning along the way. And during that first visit, Shane made learning how to help him really fun. I think that was like, an important part of, if you had made it uncomfortable, it would have been different, but we had a blast, like learning. When I was lifting you, you were making jokes and saying I was going to kill you, and like it was just fun,
It sounds fun.
It sounds really fun, but it was fun. You made it funny.
Yeah, and so we had this first visit, which was amazing.
Yeah.
We dated long distance for 2 years, which was equal parts the best thing ever and equal parts the worst thing ever, because we were so far apart for much of the time. However, we had a lot of visits in that 2-year period, and I think one of the defining moments of our relationship early on was when we were together in Pennsylvania and we took our infamous trip to New York City where catastrophe struck.
And this is in the book.
That you will have,
that you can get, so you can read about this in detail, but we'll give you, the synopsis of it.
The highlights.
Yes, this was supposed to be a day trip to New York City. Shane, his parents lived about an hour away. There was a bus that we had booked to take us in and then take us home. We were really excited. So the night before we're supposed to go, Shane, we watched a movie. It was late. It was like 11 p.m. We're getting up early for the bus, so it's already late. And Shane, we watched a movie. He goes to turn his chair on. We're going to go to bed, and it won't turn on. He's pushing the button. It's not turning on. We're like, that's really weird. It was just working. We're pushing all the buttons. His dad comes in. We're checking all the plugs. It's not turning on. It never turned on again. Like, that was the end of that chair. It was completely dead.
And I, wanted to be the good boyfriend. I didn't want to ruin this big, exciting trip that we had. I was freaking out. I was like, oh no, my chair's dead. Like, this is gonna ruin everything. And then I remembered, in my garage, I had my new wheelchair. As many of you may know, switching from one wheelchair to another is a long and difficult and frustrating process. And so I had my new quote-unquote wheelchair in the garage waiting for the day that I worked up the energy to switch into it. But it had been sitting out there in the garage in the heat of the summer and the cold of the winter for about 3 years. And don't let my insurance company know that. And so we brought it in, and I get into it, and I'm not sitting correctly, and I'm like, this is painful. Like, I don't know if we can do this trip in this chair. But we wanted to make it work. We wanted to go do our big trip, so.
And I kept saying we don't need to go on this trip.
Yeah.
I think, that's important. Shane was like, we're going. I was like, we really don't need to go. It's not that big of a deal, but Shane was like, no, we're absolutely going on this trip. So we're putting in all these like pads and trying to make it comfortable, and Shane's like, okay, this is fine. And we're like, okay, I guess we'll do the trip. We charged the chair the night before because it was obviously dead from sitting in the garage for 3 years. And we brought the charger in Shane's backpack just in case. So we get to New York City on this bus. I mean, first, the bus driver did not know. We arrived at the bus, and the bus driver didn't know that his bus was wheelchair accessible.
Yep.
He was like, oh no, we can't. And we're like, no, but this is definitely a wheelchair accessible bus. Like, we see the elevator right there. And he's like, I've never used that before. And we're like,
so Hannah got me on the bus.
Yeah.
She taught the driver how to use the lift.
Yeah.
And then when we got to New York City, he had somehow, again, forgotten that there was an elevator on the bus.
Yeah.
So Hannah got me off the bus as well. And we begin walking to breakfast. And we're going down, I don't know, Fifth Avenue in New York City. And I look down and notice that the battery in my wheelchair is already dangerously low. And the battery is supposed to last like all day, multiple days. So I say, Hannah, I think all that time in the garage may have affected my battery a little bit. It's not holding it charged.
Yep.
Our day, we had all these big plans. We had plans to go to the Natural History Museum, another museum, Central Park, all these things. Instead, our day became a frantic rush to find outlets all over New York City so that I could charge my chair enough to go one more block. We charged my chair in the most ridiculous places.
Yep. I think because the bus station that we arrived at was about like 25 blocks maybe from the museum. And we made it to the museum without the chair dying. So we were like, oh, this will be fine, you know? But it turns out like that was all of the battery. So when we charged it at the museum, we have this great picture of Shane sitting next to an exhibit. There's this family like looking at this, you know, skeleton of a dinosaur, and Shane's sitting right next to it, all grumpy, charging his chair in the middle of this really busy museum. And then we were like, okay, let's just start making our way, you know, to Central Park. We get like one block, and the chair is flashing red, about to die. We're like, it's happening quickly now. So we start moving in 1 block increments. We're just trying to head back to the bus station at this point because we're like, 25 blocks, we're never gonna make it. We have like 8 hours. We stop in a mall. It was a L'Occitane, like a lotion store.
Where the only outlet was behind the cash register.
Yep.
So we have another photo of me behind the cash register in a L'Occitane charging my chair.
Yep.
And sampling lip balm.
Oh, we bought a lip balm. We felt so bad. Starbucks, just various places along the way. A lot of stops.
And as 11 p.m. approached, the final bus was about to be missed.
Yeah.
And we were still like 10 blocks away and not gonna make it. And we had this surreal moment of like, we are not gonna make our bus. We are stranded in New York City. I called my parents. I'm like, hey, I think we're gonna miss the bus. Can you come get us? And then remember that they're on vacation.
They're in Maine.
Nowhere close to being able to help. So Hannah and I, in the middle of a Starbucks, I believe, just break down laughing.
Yeah.
We were hysterical about how absurd the entire day had been. We were tired and sweaty.
It was also like 95 degrees.
No, yeah,
it was a very hot day.
But we were laughing. And I think that that is what the kind of defining feature of our relationship is that we handle adversity really well together. And even, you know, in the midst of chaos, we were having fun and we were making a memory. And I said something to Hannah like, you know, sorry that the day went the way it did, like because of me. And she was like, are you kidding me? That was so fun. And we now have a hilarious memory that we'll always have together.
Yeah.
Fast forward, 3 years later, I move out to Minneapolis. The long distance was too much.
Yeah.
And I made the big move to go live with Hannah in Minneapolis, something that I never really thought about. I always kind of assumed that I would be living with my parents, who had always been my primary caregivers. But in those 2 years, Hannah learned all my care, and we made this plan that we'd be able to live together on our own. So we did that. And 6 months after moving out there, I asked Hannah to marry me. And maybe, it may be the most embarrassing way possible.
You really should have thought about this because you knew that we were going to be telling this story to people.
I know.
You know? All right, so Shane, the day, I mean, it was nice. So I graduated from college, And on that day, I was having a family celebration, basically. It was just me and my brothers and their kids, my parents, and then my best friend came from college and was at this party. And Shane made a plan to propose at the party, to have my family there. He knew that I would like that. But the way he went about it is the thing. So in the middle of this party, he comes up to me and says, "I don't feel good." And I'm like, "What?" And he was like, "I think I'm gonna throw up." And I was like, "You're gonna throw, like, what?"
I'm like, I've been having way too much fun at this party.
You know, like my nieces are no. Okay, so he's like, "I'm gonna throw up. Can you come with me?" And I'm like, "Oh my God, like, why is this happening? Why is he throwing up?" So we go into the bedroom, our bedroom that's downstairs. And I was like, "Do you need me to get a trash can?" And he was like, "Just close the door." And I'm like, "Oh my God, this is gonna be terrible. Like, everyone's out there and he's gonna be throwing up." I closed the door. I'm like, "Do you need the trash can?" And he was like, "No, just sit down." So then I was like, I wonder if he's actually not throwing up. And he pulls up to the bed. I'm sitting on the bed, and that is where he proposed. So it was very sweet. While he was doing it, my entire family assembled outside the door. They had like bubbles, and you know, they celebrated when we opened the door. It was really cute. It was just the initial, you know, the throw up that was an interesting choice. You could have just said, like, "Come with me."
This story doesn't work to explain quickly. People are like, "Oh, how did he propose?" He told me he had to puke.
Yeah.
And,
You have to do all of it.
so we got married last September in a pandemic wedding that was very different than what we expected, but it was beautiful, and we're married now, yay! We've found in the 5 years that we've been together that people have a lot of misconceptions about what our relationship is like. People think that caregiving is a massive burden for Hannah.
Yeah, we get that a lot, especially on our YouTube channel. People often ask or just assume that. And I mean, we tell people that, first of all, caregiving for us is just very built into our day. Like, we don't really think about it. You know, when I get up and I'm getting dressed and I help Shane get dressed, it's not, you know, we're just hanging out, talking about our day.
Yeah.
It's very much just a natural part of our relationship. And also, we say that, you know, every relationship involves caregiving, and Shane takes care of me as much as I take care of him, just in different ways. So I think, you know, people have to expand their view of what, you know, a normal relationship like caregiving is, and, you know, see that it's just normal for us.
And we also have fun. Like, when Hannah is helping me take a shower, we're laughing and making each other laugh, and, you know, talking about our day, so that it doesn't feel like sometimes we're having relationship time, and then other times we're having caregiving time. Like, there's no moment where I'm like, "Hannah, I need your help now. Can you please put on your nurse's gown and assist me?" It's just very built into our day.
Yeah.
People also assume that Hannah, by marrying me, has given up having children, having a family, and they often comment things like, "Wow, she's really an angel for giving all of that up."
Yeah, people really assume that Shane can't have kids, that, you know, I don't really know why, but basically we want to have kids, you know, like I didn't give anything up in being in a relationship with Shane, and people often think that I did.
I just realized that once we are pregnant, doing this speech and being able to announce it right now is going to be killer.
That's
People
true.
are going to get wild.
That would be great, Shane, if that was happening.
Not happening yet. Give it a few more months.
Only.
And so, although our relationship might look a little bit different on the surface, it's still full of all the love and support and adventure and, you know, catastrophes that any other relationship has. And so that is what we try to show people on our YouTube channel in the videos that we make.
Yep.
Another big feature that we mentioned in the beginning of our relationship that we experience is ableism. Every time we go out in the world, we experience ableism, and we have a few hilarious examples for you of times when people made assumptions about my life because of my wheelchair.
Yeah, and like I said, I did not have experience with disability before I started dating Shane, so I think a good place to start is our first date, because that was sort of where I experienced it for the first time. I had no idea what was going on. So Shane took me to a little diner by his parents' house for our first date. And halfway through this meal, we're having a great time. I see someone from another table get up and start walking toward us. I'm thinking maybe this is like a family friend or a family member. I don't know anyone here yet. Comes all the way up. She's kind of behind Shane. And at this point, I'm thinking she must be a family member because she puts one hand on his shoulder and one hand sort of on his face and begins to yell prayers of healing, I guess. She starts screaming in this tiny diner prayers, like help this boy walk, all this stuff.
Give him a good life.
Yeah, make him happier. It was really something.
Now, this is our first date. I am doing all I can to impress this woman. And now there's someone scream praying over me with their hands on me. And so I turn to the offender and I say, oh no, I have a happy life. Look who I'm on a date with right now, and you're ruining it. Please go away. It's ridiculous, but there is this assumption out there that people that have disabilities need to be saved or that they are unhappy all the time, and that, they need to be fixed. And that is not the case for me or thousands of others with disabilities that we've met along the way.
Yeah.
Another great example, we were out at we were walking around a little town on another date a few years later, and I was a writer at the time for a newspaper in my local town in Pennsylvania. So some people every so often would recognize me from the little photo that they would run with my articles. So Hannah and I are out walking around this little village, like a shopping area, and this woman comes up to me and says, are you the writer from the morning call? And I said, yeah, I am. And she turns to Hannah and says, oh, are you his cousin or sister or something like that? And Hannah says, no, I'm his girlfriend. The woman begins to sob, crying very, very hard. And what did she say to you?
Well, she came up to me and she was holding my hands crying, and she said, that's the most beautiful thing I've ever heard. And I was like, oh, I didn't mean to make you cry. It's okay. It was extremely uncomfortable, very uncomfortable.
And the reason that made her cry is because it's assumed that I would not have a girlfriend, and the fact that I do is amazing to this person.
Enough to make her cry.
That, again, is ableism. It devalues my worth and my ability as a person.
Yeah, it didn't make you feel very good.
No.
I'm a good boyfriend, too.
The final one is my favorite. And it was when I took Hannah to a magical place. On maybe the best date we've ever been on.
Shane built this up for weeks. It was on one of my visits from Minnesota. He was like, I'm going to take you to the best place ever. I'm thinking a waterfall, a theme park, something really fun. It's not that. I arrive. Shane's like, we're going now. He puts in the directions. I'm driving. We pull up to a warehouse. I'm like, this is hideous. Like, what is this? He was like, this is a drive-through beer warehouse. And I was like, what? We don't have that in Minnesota. He was like, it's a drive-through beer store. You drive in, it's like a car wash, but instead
they give you beer.
They put beer in your car. I was like, I don't drink beer. I don't know why you thought this would be fun for me. I think Shane just wanted a ride to this warehouse, and so he was like tricking me, basically. So we go in. Again, I don't drink beer. I have no idea what I'm doing. Shane tells me the name of what he wants me to order. I roll down the window, and the employee comes over, and I say this beer. And the person starts asking me questions, like cans or bottles or like the temperature of it. I have no idea what I'm doing, so I'm like, this isn't for me, it's actually for him. Can you just talk to him? So instead, the man starts talking to Shane. Shane answers all these questions, gets the right beer. The guy puts it in the car, we pay, and right as we're about to pull away, he comes back to my window. And go ahead.
In the most cartoonish voice that I've ever heard, He kind of leans over, points at me, and says to Hannah, "Does this big guy want a lollipop?" The lollipops that they reserve for the children that come through with their parents. So hold on here. In this employee's mind, he just conversed with a 5-year-old about what type of beer the 5-year-old wanted.
He sold it to him.
He sold the beer to the 5-year-old, and now he's gonna make the 5-year-old's day with a lollipop. I said, "Yes, I do want a lollipop." Thank you very much. Did you notice I have a beard? Again, this is it's not as offensive, but it's this assumption that I am a child or that things like a lollipop are going to make my day, even when I'm out doing a very adult thing, ordering beer.
And I wasn't offered a lollipop. At least offer everyone in the car a lollipop. If you're going to offer one person.
Hannah was very upset about that, not receiving the lollipop. These are silly and ridiculous, but they do show how widespread ableism is in our world today. So, what can we all do to stop this? We have a few things that we can all do. The first, we're doing it today, and it is to embrace and celebrate our differences and our disabilities. This conference is a beautiful place because all of us have different differences, disabilities, and that doesn't matter. We celebrate that, we embrace that, and that's okay. And so we need more of that in the world. Yeah, give it up, yeah.
The next thing is to speak up about inaccessibility when you see it. When we were abroad visiting my family in Poland, my mom's from Poland, and we wanted to buy tickets to a Broadway show. They went on sale. We were really excited about this. It was for like a couple years in advance. And we go onto the website right when they go on sale to try to buy them, and we see that the accessible tickets can only be purchased over the phone. And since we were in Poland, we couldn't call. So I sent an email to just like their basic info, at thistheater.com. And I was like, hello, I looked up the ADA, and the ADA says that you have to sell tickets, accessible tickets, the same way as regular tickets. So I cited this part of the ADA, and I was like, just so you know, you have to do this, please fix it, we really want to go to this show. I didn't think anyone would ever read this. I didn't think a human would even check this email address. It was just to make me feel better, basically. But the next day, I get a response, and they're like, thanks so much for bringing this to our attention. We fixed it, and you should be able to do it now. We went on, and you could buy the tickets. It literally took 24 hours. They just had no idea. So I think speaking up when you see things that are, inaccessible it can be an easy fix. People just don't know that, what they're doing is wrong.
For inaccessibility or even social ableism, like the stories we told, none of those people were purposefully being offensive. They just hadn't thought about the situation in a more open-minded way. And so mentioning that to them can very radically change the way that they think. So speak up.
Yeah.
The next thing that we can do is to keep learning about disability, about the lived experience of disability. Again, another great feature of this conference is that it's an awesome opportunity to meet people with other disabilities, to learn from them, learn about what matters to them. Hannah and I follow thousands of people on Instagram and YouTube so that we can learn what other experiences are like and how that can inform the way that we think and act about disability.
Yep. And the last one is to make your voice heard. If you have a disability or if you don't, just talking about this kind of stuff can really make a difference. And, going back to that original comment that we read to you, that person, the more examples he sees of people with disabilities living amazing lives, the less likely he is to say something like that again.
Yeah. My life is worth living, and I know that each and every one of you sitting out there has a life worth living as well. And so our challenge to you is to go out there in the world and vibrantly show the world that your life is worth living. There are a lot of minds that still need to be changed, but I know that together, because of conferences like this and the power of our disabled community, we will change those minds because our lives are worth living. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Is there a Q&A?
Okay. Thank you. Lori, are we doing a Q&A?
Hi, let's give them one more round of applause at Family Cafe. Thank you. Now we're so fortunate that both Shane and Hannah are going to be able to take questions from the audience, and we have two Family Cafe people, Tanya and Sarah, with microphones. So we're going to ask you all to please raise your hand. Somebody on this side, wait just a minute. We got one. Sarah, Tanya, Sarah. I can't see back there. Then Sarah, we have somebody over here too for a second one.
Hi,
Hello.
I'm Joanne Canellis.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Shane and Hannah. I saw you almost every day on my phone. I see you on your YouTube. I like that. You did such a nice, fine job.
Thank you.
And thank you for letting me see you guys on your YouTube. It was fun.
We appreciate that. Thank you
You're
for
welcome.
watching.
Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you.
Amen. Thank you.
Hello.
Hi.
My name is Mike. I'm with Stand Up for Independence. I really liked how, it's amazing how you guys overcome the obstacles of being in a relationship. But how do you overcome obstacles out in the community? Because I'm sure you guys get, all kinds of comments, different comments basically. Mm-hmm. But how do you overcome those obstacles?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
You want me to begin or do
You can begin, yeah.
Okay. I think first it's accepting that it's not an overnight solution. We have a few different areas of advocacy that we work on through our YouTube channel, the books that we're working on, social media, different ways of educating people about disability. With that being said, every day we read horrible comments or we go out in the world and have experiences like the ones we told you about. And that can very easily make us feel like our work is not accomplishing anything. And that is not true. Here and there, we hear from people who email us or talk to us out in public, and they say, before we heard about your story, before we watched your YouTube channel, we had an ignorant understanding of disability, but now that we've learned from you, we are much more open-minded, we understand disability, and it is those small wins on an individual level that really motivate us to keep going, even when we're facing challenges and obstacles. It's a long process, and we all have to work together, but we can't give up.
I also think, in the short term, when you read comments like that or you hear someone say something that's not nice, remembering that, you know, what they're saying isn't true and doesn't reflect on you is helpful. You know, when I see a comment that says, you know, Hannah's lying, they're not really in a relationship, she's evil, whatever. You know, that's just not true, and I know that's not true. And, you know, what that person's saying really doesn't have any sort of bearing on me.
Yeah.
It says a lot more about them than it says about me, and I think just remembering that, like, you know what's true, and, you know, other people,
Yeah.
not everyone's going to have their mind changed.
Yep. And it's not easy. Like, we have days where we get really frustrated about just the amount of ignorance that there is out there that's targeted at us. But trying to laugh about it, trying to be lighthearted about it.
Yeah.
As you can tell from the stories we tell, we do laugh about it, and that helps us keep going. Thank
Yeah.
you. Other questions?
Hi there. I'm dying to hear the rest of the beer drive-through story. What was the surprise? Or was it because you wanted beer?
It was literally, I just wanted beer.
No,
Okay.
yeah, the
Oh,
surprise.
jeez.
The surprise was literally just Shane wanted a ride to this
Okay.
beer store. There was nothing
I was
in it
afraid
for
you were
me.
going to say that. I thought you just forgot.
No surprise. You can all be just as let down as I was.
We ended up getting married, so it was okay, apparently.
I moved on.
Hi, my name is Jamie. Awesome presentation. Thank you for being here. My question is, often marriage is a detriment to receiving services, whether they're at the state or federal level.
Yeah.
Things like insurance, healthcare, etc. How did your marriage affect your ability to get benefits, and what did you do to keep going?
That's a very good question. Do you want to address it, or?
You can start.
So when Hannah and I began talking seriously about, you know, getting married someday, right away that was a factor in the decision. And that alone is like a difficult emotional hurdle that we had to deal with. I, as of right now, do not receive benefits. I would not be able to because of the careers that we have, which is a problem in and of itself. But we have talked about when Hannah does become pregnant, we will probably need caregivers in our life. And to be able to afford them, we would need to either receive benefits or be multimillionaires, which is another problem. And so we talked about, you know, should we get married? Should we get, like, fake married? What should we do?
Yeah.
It was not an easy conversation. Do you have anything more to?
No.
Yeah, I mean, the honest answer is that we did get for real married. And at this point, when or if we do need caregivers, we are not sure what we'll do at that point.
We'll deal with that when it comes.
Yeah, we're kind of at that point where we're like, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But we acknowledge that the system that makes it impossible for disabled people to get married and maintain their benefits is in need of reform. Thank you.
Good morning. Let me tell you something. When you have a disability, the disability don't have you. Y'all keep doing what you're doing. Because I have a disability, but it don't have me. You keep doing what you're doing, babies.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Maureen, and thank you so much for coming to the Family Cafe. This is a wonderful event, and I'm so glad you could join us. And I love hearing your stories, and I think we're all learning so much. I have a question. It sounds silly, but how did the New York story end? And I do agree that when you're under so much stress, sometimes laughter is the very best thing to do, that release of it. But when you were sort of on the streets at 11:30 at night with the broken battery. How did you get back? I was really curious about that. Thank you so much for coming and speaking, and I hope you can come back again to another cafe.
Thank you. I also don't know where you're standing.
Over there.
Oh, okay. I'm just looking
I know, I was looking over there for a
Yeah,
while,
thank
yeah.
you to wherever you are. Yeah, so the end of that story is pretty ridiculous. We charged my chair a few more times and made our way to a hotel.
Yep.
We got a hotel room, and the funny part is that we didn't have a change of clothes.
Yeah, we had nothing.
So think about sweating all day in New York City and then having to put on all that same clothing the next day. Not a great smell.
Nope.
Yeah.
The poor people that rode the bus back with us.
Yeah.
We were not good, passengers on that bus.
So yeah, we basically stayed overnight and got the next bus the next day.
Yep.
It was an adventure, but a fun one.
Yep.
Thank you. Do we have any more? I see a hand up front here.
Yeah.
If you're able, when you stand up, there you go, and raise your hand. It's sort of hard to see.
Hi. First, I'd like to thank you. Your stories are amazing, and I do love the way that you discuss it. I wanted to ask, you're from an urban area. You're from Minneapolis, Minnesota, which is going through a lot of changes right now. So within your advocacy efforts, I'd like to know if you're involved within anything with seeking equity and accessibility in your city of Minneapolis, and while it's regrowing right now or rebuilding itself, to encourage other people to do so within their urban areas, because we have a lot to do now to rebuild our cities. And I wanted to know if you're involved in that and any suggestions that you would have for other people to do so.
I should talk about DRA.
Oh,
Or
yeah.
DRA.
Also the bridge by our house.
Yeah, why don't you do that and then I'll do it.
Okay, yeah. So right near where we lived, we just moved, but this was in our previous house a couple months ago. There was a park, but it was across a highway, and there was a pedestrian bridge to get there that everyone used. But instead of having a ramp to get up to it, it had steps, so Shane couldn't access that park. And for a couple of months, we were just like, oh, that's too bad. And then we were like, there's actually other people that used wheelchairs right in our neighborhood. And we were like, okay, Shane's not the only one that can't access this park. This is really annoying. And so Shane wrote to our local, what was it?
City council.
Our city council. And they responded and said that, they'll try to work it into next year's budget. Obviously it didn't happen overnight because it's a huge bridge, but we were, happy that they at least responded and acknowledged that it wasn't accessible and that they were working on it.
Yeah, I think just the power of an individual's story, often a lack of accessibility, again, is not being done maliciously, it's being done because it's an oversight.
Yeah.
And so if a council person or a congressperson or whatever hears from an individual, here's my story, here's why this is important to me, they will be much more inclined to take that into account when they are making the budget and making the plans for what they'll be doing in their city. So speak up, number one. And then number two, I would suggest that everyone here follow an organization that we're a part of called the DRA, Disability Rights Advocates. And they are the premier legal group for disability rights in the US, and they take a lot of high impact cases in urban areas to reform accessibility. So they are a great resource, and they are always looking out for areas where they can get involved and improve access and services. So check out the DRA. Thank you.
Hi, I have a question. How long did you start your speaking engagements, and do you speak with other schools with other students to help students understand
Yeah.
people who have disabilities and special needs and how to help them see that everybody is important?
Yes, absolutely. So Hannah and I have been speaking for 3 years, maybe 2 years.
2 years? I think after I graduated, so 2 years.
Yeah, as our YouTube channel has become more popular, we've been doing a lot more speaking, and we love every opportunity that we get. I have a children's book called Not So Different that answers kids' most common questions about having a disability. And a big part of what I do in my day-to-day life is I meet with elementary schools to do exactly what you were saying. The class will read my book, and then I meet with the students and talk to them about having a disability and showing them that, yeah, like, I use a wheelchair, but we have a lot more in common than we have different. And so I love doing that. Kids are so curious about disability, and I love being able to give them a healthy and positive understanding of disability. So yeah, I love doing that as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi guys, my name's Lori, and I'm a foster mom of a son with SMA type 1 that I've raised for 2 years. And I just want to thank you guys for spreading awareness.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Hi, I think I know the answer. I can imagine the answer to this question. How did you get your nicknames?
You want to take that one?
Sure, yeah. So when we first started our channel, I think this is indicative of how few people we thought would watch it. It was really just like for our parents, basically. So we decided to name it Squirmy and Grubs. They are our nicknames, and Shane calls me Squirmy. He has since like really early on in our relationship, because he claims that when I sleep, I roll around, like I toss and turn, I squirm around constantly.
It's a fact. It's not. I don't claim it.
You claim it. I sleep really well. I don't think I'm moving. I'm pretty sure I sleep very still. He thinks that I toss and turn, so he says I always squirm around in bed.
She
and he
sleeps.
calls me.
She sleeps like a rotisserie chicken, just rotating
Rotisserie chicken.
all night long.
And I call him Grubs because his hands, I don't know if this is like related to SMA or if it's a Shane thing, but his hands are always sweaty. So when we hold hands, I'd be like, oh, your hands are always so grubby. So I call him Grubs, he calls me Squirmy. They're both like a little bit mean. And we named our channel after that. And so whenever we say, we have a YouTube channel called Squirmy and Grubs, no one ever understands what we're saying. We have to say it 3 times and spell it out, but.
Squirmy and flubs? What?
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. We can do like 1 or 2 more. If we have them.
Yeah.
If not, Hannah and
All right. Well, Squirmy and Grubs will be down signing the books. And there's a great opportunity for you to go and have them sign the books that they gave you. If you didn't receive a book, I think we have a few left over. And we'll ensure that the Florida Youth Council members will have some up there for you all to grab one. So, and they'll take questions and answers for a little while too.
Yep.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Let's give them another round of applause.
Yep, I'll take these.
Yeah.